Buy my novel, Escape from the Village, from major booksellers online. Go to escapevillage.com. Subscribe to my Substack. Go to fountainheadforum.substack.com. Thank you. Welcome to the Party Pal. This is Fountainhead Forum 114. I have Skot Sheller on, who has a wife who is from Argentina, and he certainly knows the country well. And we're going to talk about Javier Milei's second debate that was on Sunday. This is the final debate, and the elections are in 11 days. Also, I got to say this too, not related to our discussion, but today, this is October 11th, and today is the 5th anniversary of this, as Derek Bros tweeted today. Most people don't know it, but in the ongoing information war, today is an important day. Today marks the 5th anniversary of what has become known in alt media as the Purge. On this day in 2018, 500 of the biggest Facebook pages reaching hundreds of millions of people were deleted. Okay, I wanted to give a shout out to that because, we're all free speech absolutists here, and I know a lot of good people who lost their reach, and social media has not really been the same since. But anyway, how are you, Scott?
Great. How are you doing?
That's good. Yeah. So you watched the debate, and first of all, I want to know, how did you become a libertarian, and when and where did you first find out about Javier Milei?
So I became a libertarian. I was raised kind of a Republican, was a neocon, and in college I had a couple libertarian professors that just ignited my passion for it. They were amazing, taught me about Hayek and Julian Simon and all the economics and free market economics. And then they introduced me to Thomas Sowell. So they gave me what books can I read? And they're like, Thomas Sowell. So I started reading Thomas Sowell, who was amazing. Once every page you learn something from him. Yeah. And that got me going. And I got more and more. When I started watching Tom Woods, who I introduced at PorcFest a couple years ago, that's when I just kind of made my total transition into liberty, because I was more kind of a Cato guy. Really loved the economics and stuff, but I didn't really get into the philosophy all that much. So once I got into Tom Woods, holy cow, did I make even more a transition in 2013. So, and then when I got into Javier Milei, I always found Argentina so fascinating. Doug Casey, if you know him.
I know who he is, definitely.
Yeah, he's been to 140 countries. He has houses in like a dozen. He's from America, and his favorite country in the entire world is Argentina. He lives in Argentina. He actually tried to start a gulch in Argentina. I found that so fascinating. And when he would talk about it, I found it so interesting. I started reading about the history of Argentina, how it was actually the richest country in the world, and how it started to perish after the 20th century, especially after Juan Perón took power in the 30s. And so I just found it so fascinating. Then I met my wife in 2015, and she was Argentinian, a beautiful Argentinian girl. Her father is an Austrian economist in Argentina, which is actually, especially at the time, super rare. And it was awesome to talk to him about everything to do with Argentina. I just fell in love with the country, reading about everything, reading his articles about economics. And then around 2019 or 18, I think it was 18, I started to listen to Javier Milei. There's this bombastic guy that was just hilarious, like going on the things like and making people so upset, like on the show. Yes. And like saying, "Oh, you're putting a gun to my head," and like they're a bunch of parasites, and the currency's just, it's worse than shit. It's like, it's worse than feces. And it was just so entertaining watching this guy. And he actually tried to court my father-in-law to join his campaign. They know each other. And my father-in-law is a PhD academic. And at the time, Milei wasn't involved in politics at all. He was just going on trying to make a movement. Like, he was just going on shows. And so it's not like, and he asked him to join, and it was like my father-in-law is an academic, was writing articles himself. He's like, well, it's just not my style. It's not my thing. And, and then it wasn't really till 2019, 2020, when they were really trying to censor Milei, that he started to want to get into politics. And that's when he started to get more known. But I've always found him so fascinating, and his style, his brash, no diplomacy style that was good for ratings, and they just did not know what they were getting into when they put this guy on TV. They didn't know what he was going to cause. I guarantee you, if he got elected to one thing, they would have kept him off. Although Fantaggio, who's the guy that really, I don't know if I know his name perfect. The guy that got into that first brought him on the television is a supporter of him, has said he's going to vote for him. So maybe he still would have gone on television. But yeah. So it's a fascinating country. The people that love politics love Argentina because it's just politically just such an interesting place and a beautiful culture, just beautifully cultural when you go there. It really does have this weird dichotomy of beautiful culture and just crazy politics, which hopefully they're remedying the politics part.
Yeah. What do you think Milei is doing that other libertarians have not done? I mean, this is by far the most successful presidential campaign any libertarian has ever run.
Yeah, there's a few factors. One, I mean, he started like 8 years ago. Yeah. So he started in 2014, and he was just going on major programs for years and years and being a very well-known guy. Some people might be like, he's crazy, but like he's fun, right? He's crazy. Everybody gets so offended when he's talking. So he did this for like 10 years, building up his audience. Before he started running, his Instagram had like 300,000 followers. So he actually had some following in Argentina. It's not like, I think he's at 3 million today, but he had like 300,000 followers. So he had been growing this movement, and you'd start to hear about Argentina or libertarians in Argentina who just never existed prior to Milei, besides my father-in-law, who is a PhD economist. So it was extremely rare. Second, I can get into what happened. The Peronist government fell apart. So the Peronist government, the Kirchner government fell apart, and Milei came into the fold at the right time. He got elected in 2021. Surprisingly, he was supposed to get 1% of the vote, and he ended up getting 17% of the vote, and it's which got him elected. It's a proportional in Argentina. It's got him elected to the Congress. And he used that to actually make himself more popular. He would raffle off all of his salary to people, get their emails, raffle off his salary. Brilliant political campaigning. So that made him even more popular. So no matter who, everybody wanted to join his email list so they could potentially get the salary. And so he became popular there. And then the Peronist government just fell apart. And this government had been ruling the country for like 70 years. And it fell apart. And the other government, the Macri government, which was elected in 2015, was a total failure. So it was between a representative of the Macri government, which was a total failure. It was the only non-Peronist party to win since you could say the 1980s. And the Macri government fails. They have their person running who's from this failed government, and Macri did nothing, okay, when he was government and when he got elected in 2015. And then you have this Kirchner government that has been just plagued by scandals. And I think Cristina Fernandez de Kirchner, if you know her, in 2011, she got elected with a 54% vote. Okay, the second place was 16%. So how did that just dominant government fall apart. One of the most popular governments ever fall apart. And scandals and economics, the economy of the country fell apart. So, there was so much infighting in between them. So you have all these forces to come together. You have Milei rising, getting elected surprisingly to the Congress. You have the other two parties unpopular, and then you have this economic crisis that people hadn't seen, nearly hyperinflation that kept getting worse and worse, that was destroying people in Argentina, that had already been harmed by the 2001 crisis, had never really recovered, and then they were just getting worse. So all these factors allowed Milei to win, to become popular.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. I mean, I certainly don't think the voters there suddenly got smart. They just got fed up.
Yeah, exactly.
But the question, which raises the question though, is if they can go, if they can, they can go back the other way just as quickly. I mean,
yep.
Because it seems like to me that this is more. Do you think it's more about they like Milei, or more they just want to thumb their noses at the bums who've run things? I mean,
it's a little bit of both. I think the second part is the bigger part, but the economy is just so bad, and the politicians are always promising stuff. They're always like, for change, they're the party of change, the party of this, the party of that. And they always say flowery stuff. They always promise stuff. And then what happens, it always gets worse. So Massa, who, following these debates, Fernandez government fell apart after the horrendous midterms they had in 2021. So they got wiped out in the midterms, relatively wiped out in the midterms, unlike they'd ever done. And that Cristina Fernandez de Kirchner actually blamed it on Fernandez, the president. She's the vice president. Yeah. By the way, one of the big things that caused this is because she got caught red-handed stealing billions of dollars from the Treasury. So, and through bribes and everything else. So she got caught red-handed, and she's got a 6-year prison sentence. It should be life. She should get life in prison. Yeah. She should never see the light of day again. But you got a 6-year prison sentence, and she's the vice president of the country. So she could say that, in 2015 it wasn't not great, but it was better. But then she because of the immunity thing, they can't go to jail if they're in politics. She becomes vice president, and the economy just falls apart. So she's a part of that too. And so when Massa they're always talking about change and stuff, and this guy, that Fernandez, who became the president, actually was one of the biggest critics of Cristina, but still chose her to be the vice president. And so talking about another change, and then the economics minister left, Massa becomes economics minister, another change, and it just keeps getting worse. So that's why in the debates you just see everybody ganging up on Massa. It's so easy to attack him.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and Massa looks so tense during the debates. I mean, he looks like he has a broomstick shoved up his ass. It really is, So let's go to the debate. It was kind of interesting. We had a different setup. People were arranged differently, but so Milei starts off. You start off the debate by doing their 1-minute intro, and Milei immediately starts off. He says, I support Israel and Israel's rights, which I don't know what to say about that, but Argentina is not a factor in world politics, so I guess that's
what I would say.
Window dressing. But then he talks about what measures he might give against inflation, and really all of them all of them were pandering to Israel except for Bregman. I mean, and Bregman, of course, went the other way, which,
I think the attacks happened on that day, to be fair.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of emotion. What I would say about that, and some of this criticism of Milei and his foreign policy is interesting because Argentina wasn't involved in World War I, wasn't involved in World War II, wasn't really involved in the Cold War that much.
Yeah. They're not really.
They've not involved in the terror war.
Yeah, they've not really been involved in any wars at all. There've been a few. South. That's one thing I like about South America is it seems to have stayed away from a lot of the world insanity.
Partly because
I think they just figured they'd gain more by pandering to Israel than they would by not pandering to Israel. So that's the thing. So then we start, the debates again start off with these three themes. And in these themes, they every candidate talks for 2 minutes and then all the candidates also have 5 replies. They can reply to any of these themes. There are 3 themes. Yeah. So Bullrich starts off, talks about security and wants to get tough on crime. And she starts attacking Milei about wanting to release criminals, which I don't think is correct, but then she attacks him on guns.
Arms.
Arms. Yeah.
She attacked him not on the criminal stuff, but on actually wanting to allow guns, people to own guns.
Yeah,
which is kind of taboo in Argentina.
Yeah, but that's how. And then Bullrich, she says like she wants to lower the age to 14, and I thought that was just what you're going to try 14-year-olds as criminals? You got to be kidding me.
Well, here's the problem though. In Argentina, it's a massive issue. So, and they talked about these piranha attacks, and it's these young kids that attack cars.
Yeah.
And my family's actually seen these. They go to the stoplights, and there'll be a bunch of them, one with a gun. They'll get the gun, they'll attack cars and take everything. And these kids get absolutely no penalty. So that's the issue is like these kids, the crime is so outrageous in Argentina that they basically allow these kids to have impunity. And it's a huge problem, like this type of crime. And then criminals actually get these kids to do this. So I remember my mother-in-law actually had to drive through an intersection, just drive through it because, well, they don't have stoplights. Well, they do actually. They have stoplights. They don't have stop signs there. But she had to drive through an intersection otherwise because she was just going to get robbed by these kids. So I think that's what they're referring to. It's these kids don't get penalized at all for just robbing people and everything in Argentina.
Well, I didn't. Yeah. Well, you're more aware of the situation than I am, so thank you for clearing that up.
Yeah, they definitely need to be penalized. As Milei said, they definitely need to be penalized. There needs to be a penalty for.
Yeah. Some people have actually found programs where they have there are some people, although they're not where they actually do correct some of these kids and they end up with a better life. But it's something.
It would be nice.
Yeah,
but it'd also be nice that they get penalized if they do it too.
Yeah,
like some way. And I feel bad for kids. I don't want kids, to get ruined. I mean, they're good, or anything. But it's a sensitive situation. It's a situation caused by basically allowing them to have no penalties.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, So, and Milei just says, said you lie about the things I say, and basically says she wants a dictatorship, and she was actually laughing during all this. I don't know. I didn't see her laugh at all during the previous debate, but she was definitely laughing. It was kind of interesting. During that thing, Schiaretti seemed like a big drug warrior too, and wants to use the military, and nobody replies to him. I think one thing I noticed about this debate is I think the top 3 candidates are pretty much ignoring Bregman and Schiaretti because they realize they're not really a factor. So they're just really just the top 3 all going after each other, which makes sense. Yeah,
I agree. But Milei kind of got gets bogged down a little bit with Bregman. I think he wastes some of his replies getting bogged down with Bregman. And I understand she's a socialist. Very annoying. But in some of her things need to be addressed because Argentina is so lefty generally. I know it's like a different because it's the economic, everything's changed, but it's such a lefty place that some of these like this, what she said about environment, all this stuff is generally kind of what people believe. I think that's changing now, especially with the younger generations. But so I don't. But you're right. Those two. Those two they try to ignore because I think Escarti.
Schiaretti.
I know the Schiaretti, but they call him Escarti because there's no.
Schiaretti,
they don't ever say that like my name is Skot Sheller. There's no sh or they don't do that. They always put an e, so they even call him Escarti. But he did really well, by the way, in the debate. The people thought he did. Besides Milei, they thought he did the second best, but he's only polling at like 1.6%.
Yeah.
So
I said after the last debate, I think out of all the other, out of the four remaining, if I had to, I'd probably vote for him. He seemed. I mean, older guy seems pretty likable. I think Milei could probably work with him. I don't. Yeah, he's a Peronist, but I mean, he's just not nearly. I didn't say he was good. I just said he's not as bad as the others. I mean, they're all so bad. I mean,
he's a governor of a province, and he's complaining of Cordoba, and he's complaining about all the other ones being in Buenos Aires, which is true, and how they are, and it's true. They just absolutely screw over the farmers, the interior all the time in Argentina. Their breadbasket is still their farming, their cattle, and they just tax the crap out of them. And that's what so that's even though he's a Peronist. And that's one reason why this Kirchner government is falling apart and why Massa isn't winning is because he would have supported Cristina Fernandez de Kirchner. I'm sure for the first or second term, he would have supported her. But it's gotten so bad that even him, his Peronist side, the Judicialist Party, is split off from the Kirchners. And you notice nobody ever talks about her, do they, in these debates? Nobody ever. Massa doesn't talk about her, even though that he's a Kirchner.
Yeah. Massa. He doesn't talk about her again. And then, Massa wants to create these new agencies to fight crime. Bullrich replied,
FBI
said he was corrupt, and Massa we have to put cameras everywhere. Oh God.
Oh yeah.
I think he might be the most authoritarian of all of them. He is.
That whole thing they're trying to do, really like kind of a tall. He's not like the best looking guy, but a tall guy with a slender face and like looks presidential. They did that with Trudeau, and they're trying to do that with Newsom, and they did that with Macron in France. And that's what they're trying to do. But this guy he didn't talk about it this time. But what is his solution for inflation? CBDC.
Central bank digital currency.
His solution for inflation.
Yeah, that's your solution. Yeah.
He wants a FBI. He wants mass surveillance. I mean, this guy is totally one of these like crazy globals, and most of them won't talk about it, like the presidential people. And he just like, oh, CBDC. So
Bregman talked about the corruption from the top, where she's probably right, but nobody replied to her.
She's awful though.
Yeah. I think the way she's looking, she's kind of looking at Milei. I think she's starting to get a little crush on him or something.
Like when he like told her the only socialist, or like if you, as Hayek says, if you knew economics, you wouldn't be a socialist. She kind of was like, I kind of get what you're saying.
Yeah,
And
and then
Massa was like, "That's offensive to women." I'm like, "What?" I never got that part. Anyways, we could get on track.
Yeah, and then Milei talked about. So Milei got his. He was last, and he talked about reform, individual, called the country a bloodbath. Again, criticized the political caste, as he calls it. Bullrich attacked his position on gun rights. She also attacked him for wanting to sell. Apparently, he wanted to create a market for organ transplants, which
he has said he's not running on that. He's
Yeah.
not at all. But he's said that as a pundit.
Yeah,
advocated that. When he was a pundit, I don't believe politically he's ever advocated that. But as a pundit, he's talked about that, and they brought that up because of that.
Yeah. This was talking about crime, and then Milei, and Schiaretti talked about stopping drug trafficking. Milei responded, called Bullrich's team liars. He's not really calling Bullrich a liar, but he's calling her team liars, which I think is a good strategy on his part.
Yeah. She also has lied in the debates. Yeah. And that's one of the problems with this reply thing is once they get done with the replies, Milei is so powerful with what he says is that they love to wait till Milei's replies are done and then they start attacking him.
Yeah, there's
Milei always uses up all his replies really early.
Yeah, well, in some cases, you want to use your replies on what are the good topics. I mean, in the previous debate, he used all his replies on economics, which was a good move. That was a smart move because economics is where he's going, and I think that's what's on people's minds.
This one, I think he should have conserved him a little bit more, but yeah.
Yeah, and then we went to the whole work and production track, which I think is a good theme. And Schiaretti talked about lowering taxes, and and then Massa seemed more relaxed. And he talks about equality. Bregman responded with another one of her socialist sob stories.
But Massa was talking if you look at the results of this debate, he actually did way worse than the first one as far as how people liked him. The first one, he actually talked about kind of about solutions. A little bit more. This one, he was talking about social justice and stuff. He was talking about, women, we got to do some, we got to even the playing field for women and all this stuff. And because he's a Kirchner, that's the Kirchner playbook. And if you watch the vice president debate, his vice president, Rossi, oh my gosh, that guy is so bad.
I'm here and I should watch this sometimes. Yeah. And then Milei says production has fallen because of Massa's government. He really compares, I like the comparisons. You can dig a hole with a backhoe, or you can dig with shovels, and it creates jobs, but it's not as productive. And Schiaretti criticized Massa. Bullrich did. Massa responded to that. Milei talked again about corruption and.
So the Bullrich thing is interesting because she was a part of McCree's government. And she was the Department of Secretary. And the thing with
McCree was who? He was a previous president.
So after the Kirchner's 2 terms went up and the economy was not doing well, he won election in 2015. And he won an election in 2015. It was kind of a shock to the system because the Peronists have basically been in power. It's either been the Peronist or the military since Peron in the 1930s and 40s. Mm-hmm. So it's basically been one or the other. And so he was one of the only people that kind of broke the fold there. And by the way, he's a Peronist himself.
Yeah.
You can see him praising Peron.
Yeah.
But he wanted to do this incrementalism stuff. He went gradualism, and it was a total failure. He did nothing, absolutely nothing to cut spending or anything.
Yeah.
And he took the IMF loans, and she was the secretary. And so that's kind of where she's coming from. But the one thing about McCree was he was not corrupt. So the Kirchner government was notoriously corrupt. Everybody knew it. Even her followers or friends, they'll admit it. They'll be like, "Oh, it was just better under her," which I knew she was corrupt, but it was better under her, And so he was not corrupt. And if you watch her talking, almost everything she talks about Everything she talks about is her being not corrupt and all the corruption in the Kirchner government and how she's not going to be corrupt, which I think she wouldn't, but she's also not going to change anything.
Yeah, Bullrich is interesting because she tries to portray herself as being. She seems like she's a Peronist too, or
I mean, everybody's a Peronist. She's a Peronist light. She was a part of the Peronist party up until like the Judicialist Party, up until like 1997 officially, and then she broke off from that.
Yeah.
But I guarantee you, if you asked her what she thought about Perón, or if you asked her about Perón, Milei would trash him. She would probably give some nice lip service to him, just like Macri did. Macri absolutely like praised Perón like wildly, and I think she would get maybe a little bit. He's a little bit less politically popular now.
Perón is.
So you would get a little bit less, but I guarantee you she still would do it.
Yeah, and of course Bullrich had her own terrorism career too. I mean, that's, she kind of seems like, one of these equivalent of like these, a young communist, but then when when they get to middle age, they're suddenly conservatives like they are in America. And that bunch is all a bunch of scumbags.
Yeah. And her thing is their party had a couple candidates in the primary. They had the mayor, I think, of Buenos Aires. And he was part of their party running, and he was like more of a moderate work with the Peronist types. And she's like really going after the unions, because Argentina just has this huge problem with unions striking all the time, constantly striking. And she's like, the unions, So I guess she's better in that vein, but she knows nothing about economics. She has no plan in economics. She doesn't want to cut anything. She's just like Macri. She will do nothing, and they won't improve. Yeah. The Peronists will get elected again, and the country will just continue to get poorer and poorer.
Yeah, well, some of the other coalition candidates, didn't go further because they were lower in the coalitions. I believe, there was like Horacio Rodriguez and Juan Grabois.
Grabois. He's more like Bregman. He's a socialist.
Yeah, Grabois is part of Massa's coalition, and Rodriguez Loretta is part of Bullrich's coalition. So yeah,
that's the other guy. I think he's the mayor of Buenos Aires, or he's up there.
Chief of government in Buenos Aires is what they call it. Yeah, so I guess that's the equivalent of the mayor. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's much more of a moderate.
Yeah.
That's why I said she's more of a union buster, because she's like this hardcore like security person. She was the Ministry of Defense in the Macri government. So.
Oh yeah. Yeah, is it mostly private sector unions, or is it almost government employee unions?
It's both. I mean, my wife's country of La Plata, 70% of the people in La Plata, which is it's about 30 miles south of Buenos Aires, and 70% of it is government workers.
Okay, so yeah,
70%, and it's the capital of the Buenos Aires province. The capital of Buenos Aires province isn't actually in Buenos Aires, although it's the capital of the country. And so 70% of the people there are government workers. And so, yes, they do have their unions, their teachers' unions and all that stuff. Unions for everything.
Well, private. I'm much more sympathetic to private sector unions than I am to government employee unions.
I agree.
Government employees unions are extremely destructive and never should have been allowed.
No.
And it's interesting. Even Franklin Delano Roosevelt was opposed to government employee unions.
One thing I agree with him on, and I like to bring that up.
Let's get back to this though. So yeah, so we talked about Massa, Milei talked, and Scaretti responded to Massa, talked, and the problem Massa responded. Yeah, then Bregman got her 2 minutes, no response.
Communist.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I think they're just they're not going to waste replies on the candidates who really aren't factors. It's I guess if you get 1% of the vote, you're in the debates, which is nice. It looks that way.
That's nice. I wish they did that in the U.S. That'd be cool.
Oh yeah, although but Bregman and Scaretti are both in the they're both under 5%.
But Scaretti added something to the debate.
Yeah,
I thought.
Yeah.
I think that like his voice of being like in the interior of the country and how they are screwing over the farmers with the withholding and all that stuff. And he's talking about how small and medium businesses it's impossible for them to trade. I think without him, I mean, that wouldn't even be brought up. So I think, I think he's kind of add something where Bregman, I mean, I guess if you want a socialist, like a total social.
Yeah, she's there. Well, yeah, I'll put it this way: 3 of them are socialists, and she's a communist. Might be the easiest way to say it.
Yeah, she's absolutely a communist, a rat. Although the only thing that she said decent was the Palestinian thing. But.
Yeah, I mean, well, one good thing about the real hardcore communists is sometimes they often are more likely to identify the right villains. She went after the International Monetary Fund. I said, good for her. They go after the right villains, but for the wrong reasons.
Yeah. It's capitalism.
Yeah. And and goodness knows she's at least. I mean, she's and let's face it, she's 100 times more appealing than Bullrich is. I mean, she's she's older, but she's kind of cute. I can give her that. But so yeah.
Bullrich does this yelling thing where everything she does is yell. And remember the Massa reply where he's like, the way you act isn't going to help you win the election. Well. Her poll numbers have been dropping.
I know she's actually. I mean, I never imagined any woman in politics could be even less appealing than Hillary Clinton or Kamala Harris, but here it is.
I don't know if I'd go that far. But she's pretty bad. She's bad. She's not pleasant. She doesn't smile at all.
Yeah.
Like one of the fun things is Argentinians are very passionate. They do a lot of chants and everything.
Yeah.
And I live in New Hampshire, and I run a community center, and we're going to have a watch party for Milei, and we're going to run some of those chants, some of those Milei.
Yeah, where in New Hampshire? Manchester or?
No, it's on the seacoast by Dover. There's we have a few libertarian community centers, and
okay, yeah, that's good to know.
I'm such a fan of Argentina, and we actually know some pro Milei Argentinians here. So we're going to have them all teach us some chants, including my wife, of course.
La Libertad, what is it? La Libertad.
La Libertad Carajo. Viva la Libertad Carajo.
Viva la Libertad Carajo. Viva la Libertad Carajo, which Trent and Carajo.
It's so great. It's so wonderful.
Yeah. So Bregman, yeah. And then Milei got his time, and he talked about the stagnation of private employment, and then he talks about 8 million people working in informal markets. So basically, he has 8 million people, or just there's developed this underground economy that's in. When he says informal, it means everybody's working outside the table.
And do you know why that is?
Because it's impossible to work in the formal market.
Yes, and employers won't hire because. If you work in the formal market, the labor laws are so tilted towards the worker that they literally sue over everything, and they always win. So if you have an employee, once they quit, they'll just sue. They'll sue you, and they always win. This happened to my mother-in-law, is a doctor, and she was a good employer. She had her own practice, and she got sued by one of her employees that she treated well, just because she knew she was going to win. And that's part of the labor laws. They are so bad, so against the employer that and if you're in the informal economy, never work for me.
Yeah, it's informal. I'm curious. It's making me wonder: is Argentina as lawsuit happy as America is? I mean, because there's no country that. Wow! Oh my God! Wow!
More.
Lawsuits,
more lawsuits. I'm telling you, that's why the informal economy is so big, because everybody can basically sue in Argentina, and the workers like always win, no matter what.
Yeah,
it happened to my mother-in-law.
Well, is it like, if I go out to McDonald's and I and I put the coffee, and I drive in the car and put the coffee between my legs, I can sue McDonald's? Is it that kind of thing too? Or
it's very, there's a few ways to get rich in Argentina. Okay. One is become a politician. All right. Massa, the politicians are all corrupt. Almost all of them are corrupt. And they all, this talk about drug traffic and stuff, they're all involved. So many of these politicians are involved in drug trafficking.
It's just like Mexico.
The
drugs are illegal, but all the politicians are involved. So it's cartel unified with government. Yeah.
Massa, it's basically an open secret that Massa was involved in drug trafficking. In Tigray, he talked about Tigray. He was the mayor of Tigray. Tigray was big on narco traffic. And I have a friend that lives, actually you interviewed him. Is it Joram?
Joram, yeah.
Good friend of mine, because we both have Argentinian wives. And
but he's down there,
he's actually he's down there, and
he was.
He says he's definitely involved, or it's just an open secret that he's involved. I actually know people that have married politicians in Argentina that were involved in this sort of thing, and they become very rich and all that sort of stuff. And it's an easy way to get rich. So politicians is one way you become rich. Two, a lawyer, because like you said, you can sue happy. And then three, their taxes are so crappy. Their tax system is so onerous. A accountant. Yeah. So I'm an accountant, kind of. I do accounting, so I do well in Argentina, but that's like the three ways, and everybody else gets paid like a couple $100 a month, pretty much.
Yes, this show is not financial advice. This is not tax advice. This is not legal advice.
Anyway, if you're an accountant, go down to Argentina or like.
Yeah, that's. I'm curious to know too. Is do they have the what's the number of lawyers per capita compared to America? I wonder if it's higher. Or lower.
It's extremely high because it's one of the only ways you can make money. And then most of the politicians are lawyers. So
of course,
yes.
So that's certainly that. Yeah, that's certainly that way in America. Yeah.
Yes. So I mean, if you want to get extra rich and become extra rich, you can go into. I mean, there are some. My family. I shouldn't. But my family are professionals. Okay, my father-in-law is a PhD. My mother-in-law is a really smart doctor. And let's put it this way: they do not make the money that even close to the money that they would make in the U.S. or pretty much anywhere else.
Yeah,
I think I looked at the scale of doctors. I think doctors make like $300,000 a year, and in Argentina, doctors make, I can't remember, it's maybe over $10,000.
Wow, that's nuts.
Maybe it was more than that.
Do you also have absurd medical torts there as well?
Well, they have they have universal health care.
Okay, yeah.
So they do have some private insurers, but they do have a universal health care. And
part of what drives American healthcare costs up so much is that you just have all these ridiculous lawsuits. When the doctors really are doing, But anyway, so yeah, so yeah. This has been one of the most informative talks I've had. So yeah,
Thank you, man. I told you that I'm really passionate about Argentina.
oh, I love that you're passionate about So yeah, Milei talked about the political caste consume resources and attack and then Milei attacked social justice to his credit.
And the caste is true, like I said.
Oh yeah,
the only way you can get rich in Argentina, and they own everything. The Kirchner government, they stole billions. They own like every hotel, every casino.
yeah.
They're the biggest landowners because they robbed the country so much. And they're making her pay back a fraction of what she stole.
And then Bregman just talks about how she hates Milei cabs. Milei replied, and then she actually started interrupting him. I'm not sure the nature of the interruption. And Milei after 10 seconds, yeah, she like
what was that over?
She like said something, but I also realized their microphones were killed when this was happening.
Right. Oh, is that what happened? So this
is we can't hear it. So they disable their microphones when
they're in the human development thing. And he responded to her. And was that when he called her, if you were a socialist?
No, that wasn't when he called her. So okay. No, he did that later. Yeah.
I'm trying to.
Bregman's always going after Milei. That's what's so funny about this.
I mean, they all do because he's the front runner.
Yeah. It was because Milei is the front runner. Yeah. So yeah.
Right. And it's very easy to attack Massa too because he's actually in government. He's like, I'm going to change everything. But basically they gave him almost total power of the government. He became the economics minister, the agriculture minister.
Yeah.
They gave him everything. And it's been like 2 years now. And it's gotten even worse.
Yeah, so Milei, and then I loved, Milei suggests, we should go to a 1 hour work week, and it says, yes, like we're going to abolish gravity. Yes, it's like
she wanted to go to a 6 hour work week and get paid
of
more.
Course, as he said, it will bankrupt the companies that Bregman wants to nationalize. And by then, Milei had used up all his replies.
He shouldn't have wasted it on her. He should have kept one for the environment. A reply for the environment. That would have been, I would love to have him reply and talk about how capitalism actually is not good for the environment and how socialism destroys the environment. And because one thing she did say, which people believe, is that socialism destroys the environment or that capitalism destroys the environment.
Oh yeah, there's
so many believe that in Argentina. I mean, it's popular a lot of places, but in Argentina, people generally believe that. And so that would have been a nice one for him to have in his pocket. But he wasted a couple. He wasted one on Bullrich, this first or second one. His second one with Bullrich, I don't think he should. He wasted a few. So
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if it'd be wasting him on Bullrich, but definitely, he probably should. Like I said, giving Bregman and Schiaretti really aren't worth the attention. I don't think.
Yeah.
It's so.
He got Schiaretti to. He was like the only. Yeah, he got Schiaretti to basically say that I support Milei.
Yeah. Where was that? Yeah.
Because he said he was gonna. He's the only one. This was in the probably this section. No, this was in the questions section. But he asked him, "I'm the only one that's gonna that wants to get rid of this withholdings in this whole debate. Well, what do you think about that?" And Schiaretti's like, "Yeah, that'd be great."
Yeah,
withholding of exports. So
I have
basically supported Milei.
Yeah, and Schiaretti, to his credit, because he's, he probably realizes that Milei is going to decentralize. I won't be surprised if Schiaretti ends up endorsing Milei. I don't know how much weight that will carry, but
he doesn't support his dollarization.
Yeah. Schiaretti's, as I said before, but he's the only one of they're all pretty bad, but he's at least somewhat likable, just because I think
he actually is likable.
Yeah, and this is the thing I've pointed out about so many Latin American countries. The capital just so dominates everything.
Yeah,
I mean, it would be considering how big these cities are compared to the countries. I mean, so many people live. It's really unfortunate.
Right.
Not more decentralized.
when you get out of Buenos Aires, it is like
Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah.
When you
And
get out
this
of Buenos
yeah.
Aires, and I drove to Santa Fe province, and it is cornfields like Illinois, even bigger
Yeah.
cornfields than Illinois. And there's more cattle than there are people in Argentina. So
Yeah. And then
it's one reason their food is so good.
And then Massa goes on and accuses Milei of disrespecting the women. Then he compares says Milei to slavery. It's like, oh gosh, you got to be kidding me.
Oh, that's when. That's when he was responding to Bregman, and I didn't think it was offensive at all. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah,
He's responding to her, and he was mansplaining her, I guess. But he's like,
that's what they call it.
He's like, if you're so, that's where he did the socialist. If, as Hayek said, he brought up Hayek and Gary Becker in this debate.
Yeah.
He's like, as Hayek says, if you are if socialists knew economics, they would be socialists, and that's your case. And then Massa, who took that, he's like, oh, that's offensive.
Oh God, Massa. Yeah, Massa does. Yeah, Massa looks like he's really. Do not be afraid of strong men. Be afraid of weak males. And Massa seems really
well. He's just corrupt, and he thought he could win a point. He's corrupt, and he wants power, and he thought he can win a point. That's the funniest part about these Kirchner people, is they have the most leftist rhetoric, like all the time. Well, we're for the people, just like the most leftist. And she was a pretty leftist president. But guess what they have? They have a 21% sales tax. Who does that affect?
Oh, God, yeah.
Who does that affect? They have also a 35% flat tax.
What?
And I'm not for progressive income taxes, but guess who has to pay that? The poor people. They have to, and then they have high tariffs. So things like anything imported is more expensive. When my family comes to the United States, they save their money and they buy tons and tons of clothes here, because the clothes are cheap here. They're actually cheap here. Relative to their wages, they're cheap. I actually tried to buy clothes in Argentina, and they were more expensive than they are here. So people make a few $1,000s a year, and then the clothes they buy are more expensive than they are here. So you talk about like a dire situation. That's the case in Argentina. Now services are very cheap, but if you want to get a haircut, I got a wonderful haircut for $3. I gave the guy a bunch of extra tips because he's a nice kid, and he gave me a hug over that. But services are very cheap, but everything else is expensive.
Yeah, I can only imagine electronics and stuff like that. Oh, that's got to be horrible too.
Well, they have so many tariffs.
Yeah,
and the exchange rate's so bad too. For dollars. So it's just Walmart pulled out of the country.
Oh, jeez. Wow.
So many people have pulled out of the country. Yeah, they have I went to the replacement of Walmart, and they only had one of everything. So they had Oreos, but only one Oreo type of Oreo. And it's like that.
I gotta know since they're another company that I think is bent on world domination. At least if you go to Mexico, is OXXO. Is OXXO going to take over Argentina or not?
Yeah, I don't know them that well, but they're the grocery
OXXO is everywhere in Mexico.
I mean, I haven't been there in 10 years. I would like to go. My wife goes occasionally.
Yeah.
But
So one thing that's interesting is after Bullrich spoke last and had no replies, and by then it was interesting. All three men were out of replies after this round.
That's right.
Yeah. So Massa. So now we started with this environment and development track, and Massa talked about the environment. And both of the women responded. Bregman talked about capitalism destroy. And then Bregman comes up and talks about capitalism destroying everything. Nobody responded to her. Milei talked about. This was a really good part. 3 factors in development: income, longevity, education. Freer countries are 8 times richer. Poorest, and he says the poorest docile is 11 times richer than the poorest docile in repressed countries, and the poorest docile in free countries are better than 90% of, that was really good.
Milei was on point with all of his 2-minute things. They all wavered, besides Escarte a little bit. They all wavered and did a lot of fluffy crap.
Yeah.
But Milei was on point on all of them, and he was on for both.
One thing that kind of confused me is it said Milei talked about universal health care. What was that?
So I've talked to my friend about this. He doesn't support universal health care.
Yes.
However, they have it, and he's not running on beating it right away.
Yeah.
So he knows that if he wants to get elected, he can't get rid of some of these things right away.
Well, there's you can only clean up the messes so fast, and there's a lot of messes to clean
that's
up.
Exactly. And his thing is, it's not good healthcare. Yeah. It's government healthcare. It's shit. So his thing is he wants to grow the economy so the more and more people, they do have, it's not like Canada where they outlaw private healthcare. They do have private healthcare options.
Kind of like a Mexican model then?
Yes. And so
Mexico has a lot, and of course, so many Americans go to Mexico for healthcare.
Yeah, the healthcare market's way freer as far as prescriptions and a lot of things, actually.
And in Argentina, it's freer?
Yes, I mean, it's like anything. It's hard to get stuff from out of country.
Yeah.
You can get because of all the problems with how closed the economy is. It's just hard to get stuff from out of country.
Yeah, you can get lots of prescriptions in Mexico that you can't get in America. But we don't want to.
Yeah, but Mexico is actually a much freer economy in some ways than Argentina.
Yeah, I figured that. I mean, I don't know. As far as healthcare is concerned, the American healthcare system is so bad. I mean,
it's good compared to my father-in-law broke his arm.
Yeah.
When he was visiting us one time, and he was amazed how nice it was, though, how nice and precise it was. He was just amazed at the quality of service. Argentina, they do have good doctors. Okay. Their doctors are well known for being good. But they don't have the same tools and utensil. My mother had to close, or my mother-in-law, I had to close her business because she didn't have enough. She couldn't import stuff to fix her machines because you need to import parts to fix your machines and stuff, and she couldn't do that. So, that's a problem in Argentina. They have very old stuff. And another thing is their dentists are very poor quality because and I don't want to be mean. There are some good dentists there, but overall, much poorer quality in the U.S.
I suppose
good dentistry.
Yeah. I suppose though, Buenos Aires, with so many people living there, could they just take a boat and go over to Montevideo and get health care there? Do they do that? In Uruguay,
they do have a boat that goes to Montevideo.
But I mean, it's not hard. I mean,
it wouldn't be hard.
Granted, it's not ideal, but if you had a broken arm, going across and doing that boat ride, something that wasn't that time sensitive. I mean, obviously, if you have a heart attack, you need to go to the doctor immediately. But if you have a broken leg or a sprained ankle,
theoretically they could they will get fixed. It just you go there, it's like going into a dungeon. It's like a very ugly looking place, and it's because it's government run. And if you recall the Tucker interview, how they talk about how everything that's government run is disgusting looking and capitalist. And which is, if you go to Argentina,
you could go over to Montevideo to get your health care if you had to.
I imagine they might. And and Argentina is that way. When you go there, it is beautiful. So many beautiful, absolutely stunning buildings. So beautiful.
Yeah.
But then there's graffiti everywhere.
Yeah, and Milei also said he wanted competition between schools, so that's basically
he supports voucher, which is one of his proposals that people kind of don't get. But here's the thing: Argentina doesn't. It's not like ours in the same way. Is they don't have where you go to a school, and if you're in this area, you have to go to that school. They don't do that in Argentina as much. There's a lot more choice for schools there.
Yeah.
So it's not like you're in the geographical location. You have to go to this.
Yeah.
Well, the public schools are free, so you go to the public schools if you don't have a lot of money and they're trash, but you can choose to go to another one. So it's almost like school choice in a way, except for the private schools. There's no school. There's only a few schools in the whole country that are totally private. Almost all the schools get some government assistance.
Yeah, just wondering how much is there an unschooling community down there?
Not really any. I think it's banned.
Oh, okay. Well, I wasn't sure. I'd have to look into that. That stuff call you, but
I'm pretty sure you could. You should fact check me on this one, but homeschooling is very discouraged or banned.
That's unfortunate. Bregman responded to Milei's proposal, and Milei was just laughing. I don't know. It's kind of interesting. He's, and then Bullrich. Well,
he couldn't respond to her, so he was just like, that was what he's doing, like laughing. Your thing is dumb,
Yeah,
he couldn't respond to her.
Yeah.
So it's like that's his only thing, is showing him like you're not getting me. This is like a nonsense thing.
Well, yeah.
She responded about the environment.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, she responded about the environment. Yeah, and this was at the school part. Yeah. And then Bullrich got really angry with him too, and he was just smiling and smirking. Bullrich made a bunch of accusations. She said, mientos. What she says, like Milei, mientos, mientos, mientos.
Liar, liar. That was the question.
No, that was the question round. Yeah, where she said
that was the question part. I'm trying
she
to.
Really, she really after. Yeah, she and then. And Bullrich. Yeah.
Well, Massa in the environmental part, that guy is such a creep.
Oh yeah, he's a creep. Yeah,
like he says that like 3 to 8 years if you do any environmental damage.
Oh yeah, God, yes. Yeah. Sometimes I think more about it. There's almost kind of like a Jeffrey Epstein vibe with Massa. I mean, he's just that. I mean, I don't know.
I would not be surprised at all if he was involved with. I'm pretty sure it's an open secret. Like a lot of politicians, he's involved in drug trafficking. Human trafficking is a problem there. It's more of a problem in some of the other countries, but it's a problem there. And they sell organs and all that stuff. And I'm not saying he's involved in that, but if he was, let's put it this way, I wouldn't be shocked. He is an extremely corrupt person. He was involved in the Kirchner government. He's in the Kirchner government, probably the most corrupt government maybe in world history, maybe. Who knows? And he got the biggest municipal fraud in world history. And so this guy is absolutely, totally corrupt, and nothing would shock me. He's the face of corruption. And when they talk about caste, and Milei says he's a caste, everybody in the audience knows that he's a part of that caste. Besides probably the 30% that are dumb Peronist voters still for some reason.
I don't know how you could vote. I mean, they both just seem so unappealing. Yeah, that's what gets me. Bullrich took her 2 minutes and was kind of angry, and then Schiaretti finished, and I think everybody was out of replies by then. So now we go on to the question, the one-on-one question round, where you basically have 15 seconds to deliver a question, and you have 45 seconds to reply, and everybody gets to ask everybody. So that's I'd like to see a debate where they just do this for like 4 hours. They do rounds of questions like that. I think that'd really be awesome. You really get to.
The vice presidential debate did a lot more like that.
Yeah.
If you watched it.
Yeah, I have not watched it. I probably wonder if I should.
You should. The other vice presidential candidates are so much worse. Even than Bregman.
Oh my God!
Her vice presidential candidate is insufferable. It's this guy. He's insufferable, and she wants to tax idle houses. He wants to force idle house people into idle houses. So people, vacation houses and stuff. In Argentina, if this is another thing that hopefully Milei will fix, if you have a vacation house and somebody moves into that vacation house, especially if they have a child, you cannot get them out of that house.
So you can squat. So anybody can squat.
Anybody can squat, and they have crazy squatter rights there. And people literally hire people to live in their vacation houses. So people won't, like, rich people hire people to live in their vacation houses in Argentina, so that they won't have squatters. It's a thing. It's one of the things, like investment in properties. Like, who's going to invest in property if
it kills you.
By the way, it happened to
kills real estate development, and you end up with housing being more expensive.
There's no rights. The property owner has like no rights in Argentina. I'm not going to give too much. I don't want to embarrass anybody, but I know somebody there that had his house taken away. Bullshit. He owned it and had it taken away for things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, it's such an interesting country too. When you go there, there's no lawns, right? There's no lawns like in the US. All the houses are fortified. They all have gates, barbed wire, everything's fortified. And that's because you can't defend yourself. You can't defend yourself. And like Milei says, if let's say somebody goes into your house, let's say you have somebody robbing your house, come into your house and robs everything, even starts touching your daughter or something, like, God forbid, you shoot and kill them, you're a murderer. There's no stand your ground. There's no self-defense in Argentina. This doesn't exist. And so what do? They build big walls so people can get in. They have alarm systems, and guess what they do? What is their way around this? They get dogs that are trained to kill. So your dog could kill somebody, and that's fine. Your dog can kill somebody. They have actually a trained dog. Like, it's a huge industry where they have trained dogs that bite and kill people. So that's a huge thing in Argentina, and that's their security.
I suppose also gated communities, right?
Yeah, they have communities that are gated, and the kids don't even know what it's like to go out of those communities. And some of these are rich elite politicians' kids.
Yeah, and they're probably gated. They probably have somebody watching the door the whole time, watching the gate the whole time.
There's a community in Buenos Aires where it's surrounded by poverty, because if you go there, there's so much poverty. But you go in there, it's gated, and everybody has a golf cart, and the kids some of those kids have never even been out of there and don't even know really what poverty is like in Argentina. That's when they talk about caste, that's what they're talking about. There is actual caste in Argentina.
Yeah. And, the kids are just completely out of touch. I just know what it was like for me, going from a Catholic school to a public school. And
me too.
Meeting, it was, I remember that one time this lady said, yeah, I've got kids who can't afford spiral notebooks. It's like, okay. So we'll go on the question round. Yeah. You've been a wealth of information here. So I don't know where Bullrich just starts talking about jets and other things. I don't know where she's going.
That's because she's talking about some of Milei's donors being rich.
That is one question I am curious about. We haven't quite. Who is funding Milei? He's got to have some people backing him.
Yeah, there's some rich lawyers that are fed up with everything. There's a lot of businessmen and stuff that are so fed up with everything that they're just so fed up with it. They're giving him money.
So we actually have rich. Have rich people who favor capitalism. I mean, that's a concept that doesn't exist in America anymore.
Right. Well, it's so bad that it makes their it's so bad that it's just hard to run their businesses.
I
You
mean,
talk about
well,
the
well, well,
informal thing.
most rich people just want. I mean, most rich people in America are just lobbyists. That's all. They're lobbyists who own lots of stock. You know, they're all that.
There
I mean,
still are.
that's.
You can still get rich in America. So
I mean, for every Hank Reardon, there are 50 Orrin Boyles. I mean, it's gotten to be that point in America. It's,
yeah. I get your point. But in Argentina, you cannot get rich without the government.
Yeah.
I mean, you just cannot, it's impossible. Yeah. That's what they're kind of talking. That's what Schiaretti was kind of talking about, how it's impossible for these SMEs. You heard the word SMEs, small and medium enterprises.
Yeah, small, medium
to do anything. Yeah. They basically have to get on their hands and knees. And Milei wants to deregulate the economy and allow businesses to
flourish. Yeah,
to flourish. And one of the reasons why countries don't get rich is they can't grow is because the lack of credit for small and medium-sized businesses. So they can't take loans to buy new equipment or capital equipment and stuff. And that's the case in Argentina. So they don't have mortgages that are over 2 years.
Yeah, when you got all that inflation, it's like that.
You can't do it.
And from what I've heard, all the major purchases in Argentina are now done in dollars.
Yes, absolutely.
But when you're like that, you can't finance a car. You can't finance, more 2-year mortgages. Cars, that's crazy.
Cars, houses, anything big is in dollars. That's the thing that dollarization is popular. Because everybody saves in dollars. Everybody wants dollars there. Dollars are better than gold. And we have pretty high inflation last few years, but compared to Argentina, it's like gold.
Yeah, I can imagine. So,
and it's liquid. It's liquid relatively. And that's why dollarization could work there.
Yeah, and what's funny is after Bullrich was actually smiling when Milei replied about all the jets. Massa questioned Bregman, and then Bregman calls Milei a monster, even though it was a Massa question. I thought that was interesting. This is where I'm saying is she crushing on Milei because she's talking about him even though he's not the subject. And then Milei starts about and then Milei, first of all, says, "Oh, I'd like to thank you, Massa, for your support of Israel." But then he asks, about talking about, the terrorists in these delinquent countries, and he talks about, what Massa would do about that. So that was fairly.
Yeah, that was a wasted question in my opinion.
Yeah, that was kind of a wasted
question. That was his worst moment. A wasted question.
Yeah, and then
what is Argentina going to do besides get virtue signal?
Yeah, and then Bregman asks Schiaretti and then she mentions Milei along with others. Massa called out Milei for not voting for this law for congenital heart disease.
That was a good response. The only really good response Bullrich had, I thought was a good response, was when he was talking about, it was kind of a Milei. She's kind of taken some of the Milei thing, where she is talking about corruption all the time. She's talking about the yachts and the casinos and the hotels that Kirchner, and she's taking that kind of from Milei. She knows that's smart, which is, I guess that's a good thing that that they're both talking about how corrupt this guy is. And she's talking about the yachts. Lots of yachts. And she's the question that she did that was strong was he asked her about closing the Department of Tourism. I guess that's the only one that she said she would close. Malay's like out, which Bregman did the same thing because Bregman doesn't know economics. But her only good response is like, you are destroying this country with inflation. You're spending too much money. And then you're criticizing that I want to cut something like the Department of Tourism. Totally worthless thing. Oh, did you notice that the Bregman was like out when she was talking about, when Milei was talking about his, it was during the Milei talking about the human development, part, where he's talking about investment and all that stuff, how we need investment. And then that leads to higher wages, more capital, higher wages, all that stuff, all that good stuff. And she's like, oh, that means that you're not going to have out and vacation out, like benefits out. And like it's a play on how popular Milei's thing was on the blackboard.
Yeah, and it's and Milei asked Bregman, he said, I know that you're a socialist, so what companies are you going to national?
Oh, which one are you going to national?
Because, I'm for democratic planning based on social needs.
Oh, yeah, she's for democratic planning. Yeah, okay.
And then Milei asks Soretti about ending withholding tasks and tax.
That was a brilliant question.
Yeah, I think,
He said, I'm the only one that will do it.
Yeah, I think they're,
and,
like I said,
Soretti's like, and just talking about how we need to do that. And he's like, so basically,
that
was a brilliant question. That's the only one, because Massa tried to do the same one. He's like, he tried to get Scleretti on his side too. Remember, he's like, I want to make Cordoba the one of the sub capitals of the 2030 World Cup. Yeah, I guess it'd be 2030 World Cup if we get that or whatever. And he's like, and Scleretti just didn't buy that at all. he's like, yeah, that's kind of bull BS. I've already, and it totally backfired on Massa. And you could kind of see Massa being sad. He was like a little sad. He's like, and that's why I think he's so tense. Is every single person is attacking him every single time, and he knows like he's so easy to be attacked. Like Bullrich, Milei, even Bregman, Scleretti, everybody's just trashing him. And Scleretti's a Peronist like him. Yeah. He's still trashing him.
Scaretti's got an interesting history of the two. I found that for a while he was actually exiled outside of the country for a while.
Really?
His father was too. Yeah, went out because his father was with Perón, and then Perón got thrown out.
Perón got exiled. He was
so Perón supporters were exiled for a while. He and Bullrich have both spent time outside the country. Although Bullrich just for being a terrorist.
Was she a terrorist in the 70s and 80s? Yeah,
apparently she was involved in some bombings. And
oh wow, because that was a big thing, and that's what Milei has talked about. Is like that. My father-in-law talks about that, and all they talk about is Videla and his crimes, and he did commit some crimes for sure, but they don't talk about the other side, the leftists, the communists, bombing people and killing people and doing terrorism, which was a problem.
Well, they never talk about communist terrorism. They don't want to talk about the communist genocides either.
No, they don't. They love to bring up Pinochet and Videla. And Videla was worse than Pinochet.
Videla, the Argentine version of Pinochet, kind of, or
so he took power in the 77 coup, and he's the guy that killed the mothers and sold the babies to people in his government.
Oh,
he did some really bad stuff. Yeah.
He also
he's the one they say disappeared 30,000 people, but that's when Milei's like, where are those people? Where did they disappear? And they claim it was 30,000 people, but there's not a ton of evidence. I don't know if there's a lot of evidence to even back that up.
Well,
and that's what Milei says is like they're genocidal and stuff. And Milei's like, yeah, he wasn't a great guy. However, there was terrorism going on. And it was a war, and this stuff was over the war. And you guys are exaggerating this. You're taking this to be, you're taking this, to act like anybody right wing is, evil and all that stuff. So they weaponize it like you would expect them to. And like I said, Videla was a nasty guy, but he was the general that took in the junta, but.
It seems like, and I'm realizing just how long it takes for a country to heal from a civil war. It really takes a long time.
Yeah, and they've had a lot of. That was the last one, but they had. Juan Perón got power with a military junta.
Yeah,
they juntaed him off in the 1930s, and then there was another junta after his economy was falling apart in 1953 or 55. I can't remember one of those two.
Yeah, and Perón, of course, too. Sometimes I think also maybe one reason why they were, I brought this too. I wonder if they're pandering to Israel so much because Argentina was a haven for escaped Nazis after the war.
Because Perón was a fascist.
Adolf Eichmann and some of the other people, and they figured that was probably the safest place to go.
People forget.
I suppose Perón might have helped them too.
He did, because Perón in the 1930s he went to Italy and was trained by Mussolini, and that's where he learned propaganda. That's where he learned propaganda to really take power. Where he learned that you could use mass communications to empower himself, and that's what he did. He learned that from Mussolini, and he was a fascist. And they obviously, it's good. I'm glad they stayed neutral. It's a good thing to stay neutral, but they did stay neutral. And one of the people that he took refuge after he was exiled was Franco in Spain.
Oh, Perón went to Spain.
Yeah, he went to Spain's Franco. I mean, he was a fascist.
Also he wouldn't have to learn a new language, so that's a fairly logical place to go. Because
it's a logical place.
Franco was allied with Mussolini, Hitler too, but he managed to stay out of the war.
Stay out of it, yeah.
They definitely. I mean,
they couldn't really join the war after their civil war and stuff.
Yeah. Well, Spain has sometimes been called a testing ground for the war, because the Russians were also involved on the other side there. It was kind of interesting how that happened. It just Juan Perón had an epic life. He had an incredible life, and he was really brilliant politically, and he was really brilliant as far as propaganda that he learned from the fascists. And he outsmarted the military because they hunted him, and he outsmarted the military and got the labor unions and everybody on his side. And that's how he got power. So it's a really fascinating story. And then he gets exiled and he comes back. And I think that's why he's so popular. Even though the economy always did terrible under him, he was such a great propagandist. He's the most famous of what you call the strongmen. I mean, in Mongolia, they still have all these places named after Genghis Khan, and it just dawned on me, well, really, Genghis Khan is all they have. I mean, one thing I appreciate, you have to appreciate about America, though, is we have inventors, we have entrepreneurs, we have businessmen, we have creative people. It's
right.
I mean, for example, I love
entrepreneurship.
For example, I love it. I love in Warsaw, for example, that their airport is named after Chopin. You named your airport after a composer. Good for you.
Right.
Even though he had nothing to do with aviation.
Argentina has a lot of that too. Argentina has a lot of prominent people. The bypass was invented in Argentina.
Bypass surgery. Wow. Yeah. That's,
they've got a few Nobel Prize winners. Obviously they're powerhouses in agriculture.
Yeah.
They've had a lot of, you don't become the richest country in the world. Just, they had a lot of innovation and ingenuity. They have a lot of notable people, obviously Messi, but that's just in soccer, but they have a lot of other notable people that, and their food is amazing. Their food is the best in the world. They have a lot of really cool things they do that are known. They're known for tango and obviously. So so they're very, that's why I said that culturally it's so amazing there. There's just so many cute things they do culturally, and they do all the chanting and all that stuff. You love it. It's a revival of Argentina would be the most wonderful thing ever, honestly.
Yeah, one guy told me, he said Buenos Aires was like Paris on steroids.
Yeah, so we actually met a guy from Croatia, and this guy was a world traveler. He'd been to every major city, and he was like in his 70s, obviously born, during during the times when Soviet Union was big, and he's
Tito,
been a world traveler, every continent, and Buenos Aires was his favorite city in the entire world. And you can see when you go there, you can see why. And he went there probably 20 years ago when he was more probably at its better, when he was doing better, but it is gorgeous.
Yeah.
Culturally and everything. It's you see so many beautiful things there, people doing beautiful things. In Argentina, they love to go to the park, and you'll just stay at the park all day and just chill. They're so chill. Just be happy just being at the park. No phones, just at the park and enjoying themselves. It's kind of beautiful to see. You don't see it in the U.S. at all anymore. And I saw that when I was in Rosario. It was a beautiful day. There was tens of thousands of people at the park by the river. It was like nothing I've ever seen before, and it was so beautiful.
Yeah. So and then later, so we go on there, screw it, and that was good. And Bregman really got into Milei and asked him about denying climate change, and she was looking at him when he was answering, and then looking down. It's like
she couldn't believe that he actually did it.
And I think Milei just talks, about lazy socialists, but he talked about the cycles, the climate change, deny climate change, but climate change. And then Milei
actually thinks that it's largely a scam, which I basically agree.
I think it's all anti-capitalism. That's our reason.
It's largely a scam. I'm not saying
it says mientos, 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 lies, lies, lies. And it talks about little books. I don't know what that deal is where she's talking about.
Because Milei is so Bullrich Milei is so knowledgeable, and Bullrich knows nothing. Like in Argentina, generally they don't know much about economics. They don't.
Yeah, he's an academic. Of course he's reading books all the time.
Yeah, so he knows so much about economics. He brings up, Gary Becker. He brought up Gary Becker earlier. He brings up Hayek. I've seen him bring up Bob Murphy. Chaos theory.
Oh yeah,
he's actually an anarchist. He's an ANCAP. He's an anarcho-capitalist.
Yeah,
Milei is. Yeah, theoretically, he'll say he's a libertarian, which is, but he'll say he's an anarchist in theory, although he's practical, and so he brings up his dog is named Murray after Murray Rothbard. He has 5.
Murray Rothbard
is named Murray after Murray Rothbard. He loves Murray Rothbard. He loves Hayek. He loves obviously Gary Becker, Stigler. I mean, he knows all of them. He's extremely well read, which is amazing that he's good on everything in economics and basically everything.
I did hear somewhere that apparently he's not that fond of Ayn Rand. Is that correct or not?
I don't know. Ayn Rand and Murray didn't like each other, so maybe that.
Well, why does Milei have to care about that?
I don't know. I don't know if he actually
don't like each other.
I've never heard that he doesn't like Ayn Rand.
Yeah, maybe I'm incorrect. I mean,
I've never heard that. Ayn Rand is very unpopular. Used to be very unpopular, though.
Very unpopular, you said?
In Argentina, of course, yeah. Even though one of their characters is Argentinian, Francisco de Anconio.
Yes.
He's Argentinian because Argentina at that time was like the 10th most wealthy country in the world. It was still, I believe, in the top 10 when she wrote that book. It was still pretty prosperous.
Is that why she's not popular, because of an Argentine character, or what?
Well, they've always been very collectivist. They've always been the collectivist side of that book.
Okay, yes.
The Peronists have dominated, and that's who they are.
Yeah.
They've dominated politics for 70 years, and that's just who they are.
Yeah, and Milei was laughing when Bullrich was talking, saying lies, lies, lies. And then Bregman asks Massa about stuff and asks him if he's going to alliance with Milei. I mean, here's Bregman again talking about Milei. It's like, see, they're going to make an alliance.
Well, she's so he's so opposite to her.
Yeah.
There's nobody. The rest of them, Massa, if you notice that he's like, oh, you voted 24 times with my party, National Unity, which is hilarious. That's the same crap that Biden did, National Unity,
Yes,
same stuff.
national unity. Yeah.
And you in the last debate, he's like, we got to keep our peso. We got to keep our national sovereignty. We want to keep screwing you over with the central bank.
It'd be unpatriotic to, get off the peso.
Yeah. And then he's Bregman. He's like, you voted 24 times with our group and only twice with Milei. He brought that up. And it just shows you that they're so opposite, Milei and Bregman. Whereas, she's actually much more aligned with Massa, who's they're very. I mean, the Peronistas are quite socialist. They're quite, if you look on Argentina's economic freedom index, it's always one of the least free in the country.
It's horrible.
It's always bad. It was a little bit better under Macri, but it was still bad. So.
Yeah, it's horrible. Yeah. Does Bob Murphy, I've been thinking about asking Bob Murphy on here. I got to know, does Bob Murphy know that Milei has quoted him? I bet.
Yeah, I brought it up I told him about it. I showed him exactly where he brought it up. He was in, that Garboy, the other Peronist guy that was running with Massa.
Yeah.
He did a debate with him. And part of the debate, I was listening to the debate, and he brought up Bob Murphy and chaos theory in that debate. And so I sent it to Bob Murphy, I'll send you the link or whatever. I sent it to Bob Murphy, and he's like, oh yeah, like mustard gas. He brought me up in this debate. Is that like after 3 hours in this debate, he brought me up in this debate to win the debate, chaos theory. Because and Malay's like, I love this book, Chaos Theory by Bob Murphy. In that debate, he brought up everybody from Stigler to Gary Becker to Hayek to Mises. Everybody it was incredible the amount of, and he brought up some people I don't even know, and I'm very very good on economics, so it was quite impressive. He was a little bit too intellectual actually in that debate. I'm glad he's toned it down a little bit.
Well, Bob certainly needs to make sure he gets that on video and puts that on his website.
I'll send it. I will send it to you.
Bob Murphy's a good,
yeah. I introduced him at Pork Fest one year.
Bob Murphy's a good guy. And so Schiaretti asks Milei for the last question, and Milei just says, stealing is wrong, counterfeiting is wrong.
So here's the thing, Schiaretti. One thing that really turns me off, he's like, he supports the Paris Climate Agreement, which all the other things he's complaining about the government doing this and that to him, screwing over them, and then he supports the Paris Climate Agreement, which would screw them over so much.
It's like I don't pay for Buenos Aires, but I want the UN taking over.
Was it Operation? Was it called 2030?
Agenda 2030.
Agenda 2030 supports that, and Malay's just like, no, I do not support that. I do not support cultural Marxism. I love that Milei was just like, I do not support the stuff. I do not. Obviously, he doesn't believe that humans cause climate change or are a big factor. He's not going to support the Paris Climate Agreement. And I think Schiaretti was just like shocked that he was like, no, I'm not doing this, which Trump didn't either. That was one of the benefits of Trump.
Yes, and then finally we get to the final minute where they all have their 1 minute outro. And Milei just took on the establishment during his final minutes. He said, you should apologize, and really took on the political vest. He said, the cast is making fun of us. How are they going to solve the problems? And also noticed Bullrich put her glasses on. I don't know why, but she decided to put her glasses on at the end. She didn't wear them at all.
Sometimes Milei will take them off to get extra. Do you ever notice that? He'll take his glasses off.
He did that for the end of the debate last year, but last week. But what was also interesting is I've not seen Milei wear glasses at all until these debates.
I have seen him do that.
Yeah, I wonder, why does he go with glasses? I mean, I think Milei is very conscious of his look.
I think so too. I think though too that he has a problem. He probably needs to. He probably has an issue seeing. He probably
could be. It's funny, some of these debates and TV nowadays, I don't know what it is. Watch a game show from the 60s to the 70s. It's there, but it's kind of a bland set. But then you turn on a game show now, and you got all these bright neon lights everywhere. And I don't know what the deal is with that. It's so weird.
Well, it worked. That's what Kennedy found out. That's why he won the election. That gave him a chance to win the election against Nixon. He just looked better than Nixon.
Well, that's often been said, the 1960 presidential election. People listened to it on the radio, said Nixon won, and people watched it on TV, said Kennedy won.
Because Nixon didn't have any makeup, and he was sweating, and he just looked terrible.
Yeah, Nixon was that's, I have to go back and look. Who was America's ugliest president? I mean, it might have been Nixon. It's hard to say.
Lincoln.
What?
Lincoln.
Yeah, Lincoln's up there. Yeah, Lincoln is definitely up there.
Ugly inside and out.
Yeah, I'm talking about outside. I'm just going with outside.
Lincoln. You could go with Taft.
Taft. I would say, but I don't know. I don't want to go down this rabbit hole, anyways. But it's definitely. Yeah,
I think. Eisenhower was a general, so
Eisenhower was old too. Some of these people, Taft was fat. Eisenhower was old. See, this is something else too. Where do you what do you think? Since you're really watching this, how do you think things are going? Do you think Milei? Do you think Milei will win in the next round, or do you think it'll go to a third round?
I don't know if he's gonna win. I've seen him at 39%. He's close. He's really close to getting that 40.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that he can win. The economy keeps collapsing. And by the way, did you see the New York Times article today? And the pesos the first time
I try to ignore the New York Times. So
didn't I send it to you though? It was a picture, and it was like, the peso keeps following because Milei is anti-peso. That's so bullcrap, because the peso has been falling for 10 years extremely rapidly. Like when my mother-in-law was here for a week, it went from 300 to 400, and that was way before Milei was ever considered to even have a chance at winning. So this is absolutely just nonsense that they're trying to blame the devaluation of the peso on Milei. This has been happening.
What does the New York Times care for about this anyway? The New York Times has always thought that it's the world's newspaper.
Well, nobody in Argentina is reading it, at least. But
it's English.
Yeah, nobody in Argentina cares about it, but it's crazy. But people are saying that. Massa and Bullrich are both saying that. Which I can't imagine that people actually believe that.
Well, the media has misrepresented him so much. I mean, I can see it now. And, obviously, I don't know. I suppose it's just as bad or worse down there. I mean, number one.
Yeah, but they're just not as good they've never had somebody like Milei. And he's doing the alternative media stuff, and they've never had somebody like Milei.
Yeah.
And they're just, how when you have everything, you get lazy. And the Peronists have been in power so long that they've gotten lazy.
Yeah.
And somebody like Milei, like an upstart like Milei, is just so disruptive that I don't think they know how to deal with him.
Well, there's so much stupidity out there, and so much who cannot see more than a dichotomy to anything. So everything is black and white, or everything is night and day, or everything. It's not. No.
Yeah.
There might be a third side. There might be a fourth side. I mean, Milei is nothing at all like Donald Trump. I mean, Milei is an economist who reads books and has ideas and has a plan. Trump is an overgrown frat boy who probably couldn't even get through.
Never read a book.
Bloom books.
Yeah. Well,
I mean,
you're right. The only thing at all is that they're not typical politicians in how they.
That's the only thing. Yes, that's
And
all there
Milei
is.
kind of does like Trump, though,
What?
as we discussed. That's why that's why a lot of them like Israel too, because they're way more capitalist than Argentina, and they see these countries and they kind of look up to them, like. And that's one reason they like Israel, and that's why he likes the USA, because he sees the USA as this really rich country that's still pretty capitalist, and he's like, why, this is what we want to be, and that's why they like them. And the Peronists and Juan Perón and everything, the Peronists are so anti-USA. Have always been.
I didn't realize that. But yeah.
They hate the USA, and
well,
they're. For all the dumb reasons too. For all, some good reasons, but mostly dumb reasons. Mostly,
there are a lot. I think a lot of people in the Western Hemisphere have some legitimate reasons for hating the USA.
Yes,
because the USA has stuck its nose into so many countries' business. Yes. I mean, and the USA started sticking its nose into the Western Hemisphere before it started going across the oceans. I mean. How many times has the USA, screwed around with Haiti, which is the biggest basket case in the Western Hemisphere?
No, I totally agree, but that's not even why they hate the USA. It's like because they think capitalism is bad. They think that basically they have this this fixed pie thing is because the US is rich, we're poor,
and that's also because again. Most of these people who claim to be capitalists are corporate welfare statists. Most rich people want corporate welfare. They want rent seeking. They want all of this. They hate. I mean, the rich people despise capitalism.
There's a lot of them. A lot of people that don't.
I mean,
a lot of rich people that don't.
We've all talked about this a lot, and we're all really just wondering, And to his credit, Milei has brought this up, whatever he called it, whatever doctrine he called it. He said, capitalists have to support capitalism.
Oh, the Friedman thing?
I really appreciated that. And he's basically called them out because he understands that most of these rich people do not want capitalism.
They don't want
they want to lobby for favors. They want to steal. I mean,
they just don't want competition.
And really the fact of the matter is
they just don't want competition. They don't want. But I mean, to be fair, a lot of the entrepreneurs though do like capitalism, like the entrepreneurs, the small companies. They just want to be able to compete. What happens is that they get big, and then they want regulations, so they don't have they have to compete with another. But so, there still are some rich businessmen that just like the free market, even though it is potentially hurts them. There are some of those. There are still people that like capitalism.
I didn't say they didn't exist. I just said they're extremely rare, and they are. I mean, and something else that I realized during COVID also, socialists will often accuse the billionaires of wanting to steal from everybody. I think the billionaires really want to steal from the rest of the top 10%. I mean, let's face it.
They also get robbed. They pay a lot of taxes.
I mean, a billionaire, it's a lot more worthwhile for a billionaire to steal with somebody who has $1 million in the bank than it is to steal from somebody who has $500 in the bank.
You're not going to get much money from a beggar.
I mean, that's the fact is, I mean, the poor really aren't worth most poor people really aren't worth stealing from.
In Argentina, they do because that's all they got.
Yeah, I know. But, it's really, I mean, the doc, like a doctor who, the doctor who has enough money, the doctor might have a vacation home, and the doctor might have, this doctor might have a net worth of $2 or $3 million. And so the billionaires will let's see if we can, take half of that doctor's, we'll cut his estate in half. We'll figure out some way to do that. That's a lot more worthwhile than going after, a bunch of people in the poorest neighborhoods. I mean, I hope
a lot of those, a lot of the elites do believe in depopulation. And who do they really want to depopulate?
People.
It's poor people that they believe are inferior whatever done add a lot to the value to that's really who they want to.
You know,
and they're open about this. They say it nicely. I mean, Bill Gates believes this.
Oh yeah,
he says it very nicely. But
and,
he believes it. He believes that there's too many people.
I mean, the biggest, the most dangerous terrorist in the Middle East right now is Yuval Noah Harari.
The WEF guy.
I mean, he wants to kill billions.
Yes, he's.
I mean,
but he's like Massa. The Massa just reminds me so much of those guys.
Massa is exactly like those guys. With
the digital currency, he's like, oh, everybody wants to do this. That's in Milei. There's only a few countries that want to dollarize, but everybody wants to do this digital currency.
I'm wondering, who do you think Milei might go to as a model? I mean, I'm curious to know, does Milei have any kind of relationship with Nayib Bukele? I would think that, because I think there are some similarities there.
I think here's the thing with Milei. He's a total outsider.
Yeah,
he knew nobody. He knew people like my father-in-law and Daniel, the guy that you had, Dick Lacal or whatever.
Daniel Lacal,
he knows him because they would go to economics conferences.
He knows all these.
Nobody. I mean, he's a total outsider. So I highly doubt he knows Bukele.
I've had so many great people on here. But that seems like they might be a good person. Maybe he could go. Another guy was kind of comparing him to Lasso in Ecuador.
Ecuador dollarization's been good there, although they talk about the economy hasn't grown well. If you don't have pro-market reforms, if you don't allow entrepreneurs to grow, credit, if you don't do all the other things, Ecuador is one of the least free countries in the world. I don't care what currency you have, you're not going to grow. That's the problem with Ecuador. It's not dollarization. It's the fact that they're not pro-market, they're not pro-capitalist, they have too much government, and they don't have enough entrepreneurship. And almost all of our economic growth, all of our job growth, comes from new businesses within 5 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they're the ones that are new, and they're the willing to hire to grow. And whereas corporations, God bless them, they're important, but they don't grow employment a lot. They want to downsize. They want to become as efficient as possible. They're not growing their employment. So that it's the new companies that are the ones doing it. And when you don't have entrepreneurship like these countries do, like in Argentina, you're not going to have any economic growth. You're not going to have job growth. And that's what Milei knows. And that's why he wants to change all of these laws, deregulate the economy, allow for investment. That's what he's talking about, capital accumulation. He's talking about capital accumulation. And Bregman's like, he's saying these fancy words, and they're actually, he wants to, basically what he means is he wants to get rid of all of your benefits and he wants to make you work like 80 hours a week. Yeah.
One of the failures of the liberty movement has been this belief that propaganda is bad. No, propaganda is a weapon. And like any weapons are amoral. Propaganda is a good thing, but libertarians don't want to engage in propaganda, and they realize that's what the voters want. The voters want propaganda. They want gaslighting. They want to be manipulated. So it's just a matter of how do you do that to get them to vote for you.
Well, it's interesting because Milei, notice how little he talks about dollarization in the debates.
Yeah, he didn't really talk about it.
Never talked about it. And that's his big thing. And I think the reason why he doesn't talk about it is it'd be hard for him to, it's kind of hard to portray that, right? In a small 2-minute segment.
Yeah.
And so, so that's part of his agenda, but he doesn't talk about it. And there's a lot of things he does that are like, he simplifies things and all that stuff. Whereas if he's in a longer form interview, he will talk about it.
Oh yeah. Maybe I should find some longer form
guy. I can't even pronounce his name. I forgot how to pronounce it's Fenty. I forget. Yeah. He's a very famous media guy. He's the guy that gave Milei his start in media.
Yeah.
And he'll talk about it there. But
Yeah.
like we'll bring it up, but Milei just like kind of just doesn't talk about it. And the thing is, it's actually popular there.
I think
like, why do we have to use this worthless crap? And then we could use dollars that are actually.
And they already are. Yeah. I think long form podcasts.
They are, except for not small transactions.
Yeah.
So if you're going to the barber or, going to the barber or something, they still use pesos. Going to the store, still use pesos. So.
And as you said, people have to, apparently if Americans go there, they got to be kind of careful if they carry dollars around.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. In fact, we had we eventually, Western Union's one that actually will exchange at the rate, the market rate. But the thing is, we got that, and we're going to exchange a decent amount of money. Let's put, and they rejected our thing because the lady was jealous that we had that much money that we were exchanging. Yeah. It's not that much money for Americans, but for Argentinians, that's like a ton of money. And they have this, that same mentality in Ayn Rand where they don't like people to do well. They don't want people to do well. And there's a lot of envy and jealousy, especially among these leftists. So they wouldn't even let us exchange. They canceled our thing. So what we end up doing is we end up exchanging with the family because they want dollars. So they get to save in dollars and they can give us pesos. That's how we did it.
Well, I thought about going there, just keep some dollars to like give out as tips, tip people in dollars.
I would you could still do it. I just tell you to talk to your buddy, who you had on the show. He's my friend, but Jareem. He will tell you how to do it. And I actually was texting him about it, and he said, I know places where you could do it. So if you go there, text him, and he'll probably be able to help you.
Yeah. Well, I first learned about Milei from when Olga Maria interviewed him some months ago.
She interviewed him?
Yeah, Olga Maria. Yeah, he was on Olga Maria's show, and that was kind of like,
wow, I'll have to look. That's awesome.
Yeah, and
we've tried to get him to come to PorcFest.
And it was like this whole thing about, is Argentina going to have its Ron Paul moment? I said, no. Milei is actually going to have an impact.
He's way bigger than Ron Paul.
Oh, God, yeah, he's way bigger.
And Daniel, man, I don't want to.
And Milei went over 1 million followers on Twitter last Friday, too. We'll have to celebrate.
Yeah, but he's like 3 million on Instagram.
Yeah, I'm not on Instagram, so, yeah.
But, I mean,
that's the thing. Milei has really, really learned how to use social media. He's really done well.
I think he has people doing it for him.
Yeah, well, whoever's doing it, he's doing it right. Yeah, I think
those people are good, and he's just good at it. I think he's good at it too. It just when you're so busy, you can't do everything.
Yeah.
He doesn't have Jorgensen's social media. He actually has good ones. And,
gosh.
Yeah. So.
Oh gosh, yeah.
So like, he's a brilliant marketer, and people in my family that are libertarian but didn't like him because they think he's kind of crazy or stuff. It's because he's a brilliant marketer. He's just he really is good at getting publicity.
Yeah.
And if you see him now, he's much more in these debates, much more restrained.
I think part of what maybe's made him good at this is he was an athlete and a musician. And I think that's maybe given him a certain amount of appeal that he wouldn't have. I mean, because you have to study success to figure out, why has the liberty movement been such a horrendously bad failure in so many places, and why is this guy winning? And we have to look at that and figure out why. I mean, it's. I
told you that he's the right man at the right place.
Yeah, the right time. Yeah.
If this was 4 years ago, he wouldn't be getting this impact. Man. Like the other guy, I forget the other dirty guy. He wouldn't be getting this impact. I think he'd be, he'd do better than that guy, but he wouldn't be getting. If this was the 2019 election, he wouldn't be doing that good.
And I think you have to find a sweet spot where your messaging is edgy, but it doesn't scare people.
It's interesting because his was extremely edgy for years.
Yeah.
He puts LP.
Or maybe people just got used to him. You know, I mean, when South Park came out, it seemed like it was rather shocking. Then 10 years later, it doesn't seem as shocking.
I think that's with him. And then now he's already said the crazy stuff. So now people expect him to say it. So when he's more moderate, they're like, oh, look how diplomatic Milei is. He used to be this crazy man, and now he's like, not yelling at everybody all the time.
Yeah, and I've also heard that his
stuff.
And I guess his girlfriend, he's also got a girlfriend, Fatima Flores, who apparently is probably giving him some advice on how to look and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean, there's probably a lot. He's probably got a lot of good people. What do you think of
his advice? People around him are actually very good.
Yeah. What do you think of Villarreal? You got an opinion on her? Or?
Who?
Victoria Villarreal. The vice presidential candidate.
I watched her debate. She's kind of a conservatarian. She's not totally aligned with Milei. Yeah. She's a good partner, though. She is aligned with him in economics. She's a little bit more pro, military. A little bit more like that. But she was great in the debate. She is fiery. She did not take any crap from anybody in that debate. She was great.
Yeah, I'll have to watch that. Yeah,
you should watch it. It's a little bit hard for people that don't speak Spanish super well because they're all talking at the same time.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, so their debate is totally different. They actually have a portion of time when they can interrupt each other. So they have 8 minutes where they can interrupt each other. Yeah. And for the first 4 minutes, they can't quit talking. They're all interrupting, all talking at the same time. Yeah. So actually, me and Joram had a argument. I actually like this debate better than that one because this one you actually get more content, although that one is more entertaining.
I can imagine be entertaining. Yeah.
And holy cow, the other ones, Bregman and Massa. Escarty, actually, I like his vice presidential candidate. Bullrich was all right, but the rest of them were just creeps. Yeah. Total creeps.
Yeah. Now, if Milei wins, does he also get some people in Congress who are going to help him? I mean,
they're going to get some.
Yeah, he's going to be able to implement. I hope he's able to implement his agenda.
Yeah, he needs some. It's going to be hard for him. He does need some. Yeah. They do have people running. It'll be hard for him. But here's the thing. It's so desperate that people might be able to, it's one of these things where a little bit can go a long way in Argentina, I think.
It might also depend on how big he wins, because let's say
he wins in the first round.
I mean, if Milei ends up getting 60% of the vote, people are going to be more likely to go along with him.
He's not going to get, like I said, in 2011, Christina de Kirchner got 54%. I mean, we're hoping Milei gets 40%.
Well, yeah. I mean,
Milei gets 40 or 41%.
If he gets 40%, I think it goes to another round.
No, he doesn't. He wins. If he gets 40%, he wins.
Okay.
So if he gets under 40%, he's going to go to the next round. But if he gets 40%, he wins outright.
I thought it was 45%, but that's still
it's 40.
My biggest fear, though, and I've said this many times, is that he ends up being a complete fraud like Alan Greenspan. Do you think there's any chance that'll happen? I don't think there really is, but I still think that's the worst case scenario.
I think he will try to do everything that he says he will do.
Well, that's good.
The question I think he hates, I mean, you don't realize how bad. Like Greenspan was the Fed chairman when the economy was pretty good and everything was pretty good.
Well, I bring up
Milei is going to be president when people are starving to death, and then 40% of people are poverty. And we're not talking about poverty, U.S. poverty. We're talking about Argentina poverty. We're talking about people living in slums.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. We're talking about people. The amount of poverty you see in Argentina, man, is like nothing you've seen in the U.S. I've driven by places in Argentina, and these places were like buildings that were, you're driving by and there's absolutely no way anybody's living in that place. That place has not been maintained in decades. That place is falling apart. You look up, it's this building. There are clotheslines all over the building. People are living in these places that are like, holy cow. There's a prime real estate outside of Buenos Aires, and within a week or two, they build up these slums, like with anything they could, with blocks, with anything they could, and they're not stable. So if it rains, they fucking fall down and people die. Sorry for cussing, but
that's fine. Yeah.
So like people die in these things, and this is like prime real estate, but they live in these slums, and it's so sad to see. And I was driving by Quilmes. Their famous beer is called Quilmes, Argentina, on the way to La Plata. Holy cow, we're talking like unbelievable poverty at that place.
Is that probably the worst in South America or Latin America? I've been to Peru, which is pretty poor.
There's poorer countries, Bolivia.
Yeah.
There's poorer.
I just wondered. Yeah, I only bring up Greenspan because Greenspan actually hung out with Ayn Rand for a while and even wrote, essays. I mean, and he ended up being a total fraud and never did anything.
He was, but Greenspan was a fraud, but he's not a free agent. The Fed chairman is not a free agent. The Fed chairman does what the government wants him to do.
Well, I mean, so many of these people claim to be for free markets, and they don't do anything. Whether it be Paul Ryan or Alan Greenspan or another, as I call it.
We also live in the USA.
Or Mark Cuban. They're Ayn Rand masturbators, and they never do anything. They read Ayn Rand, but they never even try to do anything.
Yeah, but we also live in the USA, which we're pretty rich. It's compared to Argentina, it's still pretty capitalist.
I understand. Yeah.
And people pay over 50% in taxes.
Yeah.
You can't, like I said, the informal economy is so you can't hire anybody, like I said, because of the laws. The government is so corrupt. Whereas they're openly corrupt. The Kirchners were openly corrupt. Everybody knew it.
Yeah.
And so, yes, this is something that would anger anybody. And it's so upsetting that the amount of hatred that Milei has for all this he would be loved to fire these people.
Yeah. And from what I've heard, he actually does wear a bulletproof vest.
I believe it.
Yeah. I mean, because that's another thing, what happened. But I also think he's going to inspire.
He's not been doing his things either. He's
going to inspire another generation of Mileis, and he could actually get some kids and stuff.
Young people like him. All the young people.
Yeah, I mean, I think this really, like I said, I think this can be absolutely positively huge, and I see very few downsides to this. And
the only that what's her face, the Guatemalan politician doesn't like Milei. And
Gloria Alvarez?
She thinks that he'll be corrupt and then he won't do anything and he'll ruin the movement. But
yeah,
I mean, I just come on, like I just don't buy it. I mean, first of all, I don't want to trash her too much, but he's successful.
Yeah,
he actually has gone really far. And maybe if you've gotten this far, if you're actually going to become president of Argentina, a big company, the eighth biggest country in the world, size-wise, and a former powerhouse, a beautiful country. If you're actually going to become a president of this country, maybe you should just, let him do his thing. Maybe you should second-guess him a little bit. Maybe he knows more than you.
Well, I suspect it might also be because he doesn't want to legalize abortion or something like that. And
she's kind of a
well, and I realize also, the problem is, if you have to outlaw things, you've already lost. If you have to outlaw abortion, you've already lost the war anyway.
Country.
I don't want to pick on her that much either, but I also know that Antonella Marti doesn't like him.
I'm not sure. I don't know who that
she's
is. There's a bunch of people like that. There's a bunch of people that don't actually like Milei. Like there are a lot of these economists in Argentina don't like Milei because of his antics mainly. Because of his antics. Like there's a bunch of them like they're the Cato type people there that don't like Milei.
Cato people seem to be pretty positive about Milei. I think they realize
the Argentinian Cato people.
Well, I don't. I've had quite a few. I think I've had some. I don't really know who you're talking about. And there's no point in mentioning them.
I just know there's a bunch of like the academics.
There's another thing too.
Although they're all going to support him.
Yeah,
they'll all vote for him. They'll all be
there's another thing too, Scott. There's another thing too here that I'm largely convinced that some people in the liberty movement want the liberty movement to just stay where it is. They're content with it being that way.
Yes.
And they just want it to kind of stay where it is.
There's a lot of them that won't talk about
the
FSP. Yes, I know.
Yeah, I remember, this reminded me of a letter that was published years ago in TV Guide. And this person who was a person who was a Star Trek fan and said it was a lot more fun when everybody thought we were crazy. And this you're going back like maybe in the 70s when before it just became something that lots of people liked. I think there's definitely people who just want to be part of a fringe movement and they don't want it to go anything beyond being a fringe movement. They don't want it to go mainstream.
Yeah, I agree. There's some,
and they're not necessarily bad people.
People that don't do anything too. They just talk.
I don't know. I don't know what it's like. The movement. I think there's sometimes there's a sense of righteousness in losing. We lost, so that proves that we're righteous. It's really kind of odd, but
I know we don't want to talk about it. I mean, that's the whole reason the FSP was even started, because there was no winning, and we were like
the FSLP, the Free State Project,
that was
I think after COVID also, I mean, I think we have largely come to the conclusion that a large portion of the population is basically irredeemable. It's
there are certain you're in a good state, pretty good state, but there's certain states that are irredeemable. Although Argentina it looks like it might turn around, and Argentina, but I mean, way worse off than anything in the U.S.
I do not want to believe that anybody is irredeemable. But I do realize that educating, trying to convert socialists
people
and trying to convert voters to libertarianism is really like trying to rehabilitate a drug addict. You don't use or it's just like arguing.
I agree.
It's like or you could just say it's like arguing with a smoker about smoking. Facts do not matter. They get some kind of fix from this, and it makes them feel better. And I don't know what. You just have to figure out a way to get them their fix. And if Milei's figured that out and has the formula, then let's go for it.
People are just like, we don't want to starve. And they're like, let's try. And after a certain point in time, people's beliefs are just fixed pretty much.
And it's unfortunate.
After you're in your 20s and especially your 30s, your brain is quit developing. And your ideas are really just fixed. What you had, it's a positive change, but it's you at that point you've pretty much got your ideology, what you believe down, and it's really hard to change at a certain point of time.
Well, I was amazed at all. Certainly. I'm amazed. To his credit, Milei has certainly come out against the COVID nonsense, and that was the ultimate in corruption.
And that's one of the things that allowed him to get elected, because that destroyed they had the longest lockdown. They had terrible, they put, I think, 40,000 people in jail for walking around in Argentina. They had the longest lockdowns, and this is a poor country. And you talk about destroying the economy. And this is what they did. And this is really the reason why Milei, I mean, if you really want to talk about an impetus, it's the lockdown.
Yeah, well, that could be, and maybe that's a positive thing that comes out of this. We often joke that everybody's there's been this line, well, everybody's a libertarian, they just know it yet. And in 2020, we found out, well, lots of people are authoritarians and they don't know it yet.
Well, a lot of people are authoritarians and they're proud about it.
Yeah, and some of them are even proud of it. Yeah, but it's
the Karens.
I'm kind of like, instead of trying to educate you either. And, when I use the drug addict analogy, it's kind of a harsh way to look at it. But if you can't convert the drug addict, then really you give them as many drugs as possible. So they
boost them up,
so they destroy themselves. Because, it's like, you either try to rehab the addict or you try to at least render them so they're not destructive. So hopefully they don't have kids.
That's why we shouldn't be anti-booster, because the people that are taking the boosters.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's just boost up.
And this is also why we should not be opposed to why we should favor legal abortion. Oh goodness, yes. Why do you want Gretchen Whitmer to have kids? Why do you want Jacinda Ardern to have kids? Why do you want Bullrich to have kids? I mean, if Bullrich wants to take her kids out, then let Bullrich do it. Or Bregman, I mean, it's the most effective way to get the trash to take itself out.
Yeah, no, I get your point. I get your point. Strategically, it does make sense. It's moral, morally and stuff. That's where you might have a qualm.
You can only have morality when you have a moral society.
Yeah, no, I get it.
You can't have morality in war, and
I understand what you're saying.
The Free State Project, I'm in favor of that. Monte Libero, who knows? Maybe El Salvador will become the Latin American Free State Project. I mean,
be nice.
It's a lot of things to say. But if you can only have morality in a moral society, and if your society's, it's I know. COVID changed my mind about abortion. That I'm serious.
Well, this belief that I think it was Dan Mitchell of I think Cato. He's really good.
Yeah, Dan Mitchell's a good guy. Yeah,
good guy. Yeah, and he basically says a society's dead when mooching just becomes accepted.
Yep.
And he actually thought Argentina was to that point.
Yeah.
And he's encouraged that Milei has become more popular, and maybe that's not right. Maybe mooching is not as maybe people are waking up to it.
Well, we've gotten to a point, where voters are so stupid that they don't even realize that food comes from a farmer. They think it just magically appears at the grocery store.
Yeah, people don't understand where things.
I don't know.
They think everything just magically appears.
It's
that's what the socialists believe.
Yeah, it's just so ridiculous.
Progressives believe that economic growth just happens, no matter what you do. Your economic growth is it's like manna from heaven, or winter snow or rain. It just happens. No, it doesn't happen. Markets are actually very fragile, extremely fragile. They can be killed very easily, and that's why we need to protect them.
Yeah,
and that's how we get economic growth. And yes, Bregman, when Milei was talking about all these things, Bregman didn't understand what he was talking about at all. That's why he brought up this.
Yeah.
And, Milei is totally right on all this. The only thing that maybe I could criticize, I'm not going to because I love it, is that it might be too complex for people to understand. When he was talking about like investments and how you get investment, and you need investment for profit, and the more investment and all this stuff, the more capital, the more earnings, the more you can produce, the more earnings, all this stuff. And like that, the only thing I might criticize him is that's a little bit too, might be a little bit too complex for people, but
yeah. Well, and I also, sometimes, I also know Bitcoiners are very enthusiastic about Milei, and really Bitcoin is really just a way to create a bulletproof capitalistic system. You basically create a capitalistic system that cannot be voted out, because if we know that democracy destroys capitalism. We know that democracy destroys a gold standard. So you have to create some kind of standard that is voter resistant, because democracy is going to be voting for freebies, voting for gimmies, gimme. It's
well, that's why Milei wants to get rid of the Fed or the central bank in Argentina.
And so maybe Bitcoin is the solution. Basically saying, "Oh my God,
He says it could be."
I mean, maybe also, maybe this could. I was talking about it in the previous, but I've noticed also that Marx was about ready to die before the Bolshevik Revolution. Maybe this will be, maybe after this, the academics who are so unbelievably corrupt might stop being corrupt because they have enabled all of this. They didn't have to enable it, but they did. They promote Karl Marx. They promote all of this death and destruction by choice, and maybe something will fix them finally, and they'll become decent human beings again.
Yes, yeah, I think that's
well,
a possibility. I think it's happening. You're kind of seeing it in Argentina.
Yeah.
And just this cascade of things that have caused what has happened there.
Yeah. It's just a shame. It's just a shame you have to get to a real bottom before things.
Yeah, Argentina was actually a huge black pill for me because it was a very rich country that has, for its 80 years, about 100 years, just gone straight downhill.
Yeah,
without stop.
Completely
downhill, and that was it. You talk about a black pill, and the government can actually organize things where they always have political power, and that's what they did with the unions in Argentina.
Well,
where they organize things, where they create a big state that are always going to vote for them.
Yeah,
and same thing would happen in Mexico. They created a political arrangement where they were always going to get reelected with their land stuff. So it was actually only after NAFTA that they actually destroyed their political power.
Yeah.
But it can happen, and that's what, if you look at the Democratic Party platform, I know I've seen it in New Hampshire, that's what it is. It's basically, what can we do to get permanent political power?
Yeah.
How can we pay off? How can we pay off? How can we mooch off of people to get permanent political power?
Well, America was fair, and America really was very great in a lot of ways, because I think you had a society that was very literate, where a large portion of the population made the choice to be informed. This has been a great conversation. Do you have anything else you want to say? You're certainly much more than it's been a great.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. I could talk for hours more about Argentina.
Yeah,
it's such a fascinating topic for me.
Yeah, it is a fascinating country.
I love it. And I'll just come. Like I said, if you're in the New Hampshire, Massachusetts region, we're having a Milei watch party October 22nd at the Shell in Rollinsford, New Hampshire. So look it up. Shell and H. It should be on the FSP calendar. Come visit. I would say come visit New Hampshire.
Yes, Liberty Forum is in February and March.
Have you been? You go to Liberty Forum, don't you? I feel like
I've been to Liberty Forum once. I've been to PorcFest once.
Oh, just PorcFest once. I feel like you've gone to PorcFest every year since I've been there. No,
I'm not a camper. I'm not a camper. I think.
Did you go in 2021? Is that when I saw you at PorcFest?
I went to PorcFest in 2021. Yeah, I don't think I
saw you there. I remember seeing you there.
Yeah, I remember, and I went to Liberty Forum the next year.
So maybe I saw you. Did you go to Freedom Fest this year too?
I was at Freedom Fest. Yeah.
Okay, so that's where I've seen you. I've seen you at Freedom Fest.
It was at Memphis.
And PorcFest. What?
Yeah. I went to Freedom Fest because I was able to drive. So yeah, I drove from Austin to Memphis. Yeah. So anyway, I'm Chris Baker. Please like and subscribe. Follow the channel. Give it a thumbs up. I have a novel called Escape from the Village, and go on my Substack at fountainheadforum.substack.com. Thank you, Skot Sheller, and we're out.